Welcome into the Sports Buffet, presented to you by 4-Star Sports Media. We are live right now on YouTube and X from the Craters Freighters Memphis Studio, where they ship everything except bad takes and bad weather. As right now, a large portion of the country is dealing with a winter storm Fern. What a name for a winter storm. But welcome into the show. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well on this Sunday morning, January 25th, 2026. And this is your Senior Bowl Sunday warm-up as we sprint towards kickoff next Saturday from Mobile. We are currently in Fayetteville, Arkansas. That will change. But the Panini Senior Bowl, the premier college all-star game and first real stop on the 2026 draft road, will kick off Saturday, January 31st, at 1:30 p.m. from Hancock Whitney Stadium at the University of Southern Alabama in Mobile. FanFest will take off that morning. The path to the draft team walk, then 4 quarters of guys fighting for jobs with every single snap. Welcome in. We're coming to you from the Craters Freighters Memphis Studio. These are the folks you call when the words, quote, normal shipping make you nervous. If your gear is oversized, fragile, hazardous, or just flat out too valuable to toss in a brown box, Craters Freighters Memphis will design the crate, build it, pack it, and ship it anywhere, cross town, cross country, or overseas. You're going to hear a lot more about them this week. You see their logos on screen as well. They're going to have us packaged up and heading to Mobile, and they will be our title sponsor all week long. And then we have written coverage as always. We've gotten a few pieces out recently on a basketball team we're going to talk about when we talk Memphis hoops. And this 2-hour show, by the way, every show this week is going to be 2 hours long. But for our written coverage around the game and more, it's going to be presented to you by the Chris Hope Foundation, which is a Memphis-based group that steps in for families whose kids are fighting life-threatening illnesses. They've been honored with naming the rights to the Chris Hope Foundation NICU Infant Development Room at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, a space literally built to help the tiniest, sickest hit babies when their parents are trying to hold it together. And for those of you that don't know, and we're going to get into it when we get into the hope of the moment, hope of the week, moment of hope moment, presented by Chris Hope Foundation. We'll get then into that here in just a few segments. But as far as what's on the menu today, we've got a NFL division round fallout. We'll talk about Broncos, Bills, Seahawks, 49ers, Texans, Patriots, and Rams, Bears, and why those 4 games just may have kind of rewrote some shopping lists for the game in Mobile for some teams. Then, speaking of shopping lists, we'll get into a Senior Bowl shopping list, the positions that actually move money in the game, plus some names, quarterbacks, some hogs in the trenches, edges, corners, safeties, and we'll get into some tight ends as well as we begin the coverage of the 2026 Panini Senior Bowl. Don't forget, Panini Primetime will be unveiled tomorrow night. Got a very special guest coming on, a guy that you've heard before, a guy that you know. But after we talk shopping list, we'll take a break. Then we'll get into little hoops. If we have a hoops check-in, we'll talk about Memphis Tigers, Arkansas Razorbacks, as they're 2 teams trending in opposite directions right now. Who's real and who's just a good story and who may be on the way out. Then as we close, we'll get into some buffet bites as we talk about some interesting storylines across wrestling, spring football, baseball, minor league baseball, live, golf, and our first, like I said, moment of hope. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. We appreciate everyone watching. And folks, if you enjoy what you see, if you enjoy what you hear, by the way, if you're listening on podcast, we've got little Mardi Gras decorations on the screen. For those of you watching the live stream, we appreciate you watching. If you like what you see, like what you hear, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the share button. That's how we are able to continue bringing you professional, consistent sports coverage. And by the way, if you are enjoying and you want to comment, feel free to comment. Shoot us a message. Shoot us a little comment on the screen. We'll pull it up. We'll mention it. We'll even break it down. But let's go ahead and jump into segment number 1, which is NFL division fallout and what it means for Mobile. The division round is where pretenders go home. And this past weekend, was a giant neon sign pointing towards what teams will be hunting down in Mobile this week. When you look at Broncos, Bills, Broncos got the overtime win. We saw Bo Nix with an incredible football game and 26 of 46, 279, 3 touchdowns, did throw 1 interception. First playoff game, first win. Denver wins their first playoff game in quite some time. But you look at Buffalo's offense, I mean, they scored 30 points. They did their part. Defense just kind of struggled. But, of course, you look at the end of the game, there's a certain photographer here with us that I know if she's listening or watching this, she's probably cussing me right now. Because, the play at the end, I believe it was a catch. I believe the player from the Bills caught the ball. Then he was down. He was on his back. The ball gets ripped out. It ends, right? But Bo Nix gets injured. I didn't even realize he was hurt. You look at him in post-game, having full conversations. But Broncos get the win 33-30. Then next we got Seahawks, 49ers. I expected this game to be a lot more competitive than it was. They absolutely embarrassed San Francisco, 41-6. Kenneth Walker III, a young man that I personally know, turned the Niners defense into a demo reel as he had 145 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. And by the second half, it really felt like a preseason game almost. If you work for the 49ers, you need linebackers who can run and tackle in space. You need bigs up front who don't get rolled. But going to be very, very interesting to see how these teams that are in the playoffs, like the 49ers, Seahawks, and others, how do they address this week? They're going to be in Mobile. Over 28 teams have announced, quote unquote, they're going to be there. But it's gonna be a lot of fun down in Mobile. But like I said, with the NFL playoffs wrapping up or getting close to wrapping up, you got Patriots continue to play well, big time win. Just the way Mike Vrabel has been able to just come in and just implement his way, implement his culture, implement his way of thinking all the way across offense, defense, everything. They're a physical football team. They really take the shape of their head coach. And the Patriots have been fun to watch. It's a team that I've thoroughly enjoyed watching this season. And then, I really expected, what a game. Rams 20, Bears 17. There's a nightcap. Caleb Williams throws 3 picks. The last one set up a 42-yard game winner by Harrison Mevis from the Rams. But big-time win as LA now advances to take on Seattle for the NFC crown. And then if you're Chicago, you got to support your young quarterback. You need to get him some protection. A defense that really doesn't ask him to just do everything, right? I mean, if you're Caleb Williams, you look at him from a college perspective at USC. He had a defense, really a lack of a defense at USC. He had to score a lot of points. And now that he's at the Bears, he has to do very similar things. So if you're the Bears and you're coming into the Senior Bowl week and you've got needs or you've got greeds, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But what do you do? Where do you go? It's going to be very interesting to see this week. Let's go need or greed. So let's play a little need or greed Senior Bowl edition. As I'm going to throw out some teams and some positions, and then also give some needs or maybe just some greeds. So when you look at Buffalo, for example, I think they need a versatile defensive back. I mean, 33 points in overtime loss. You need. Is it a true need or is it just depth? I think it's a need. You can't just cover backs, tight ends, and slot guys in 2026. I mean, you have to be able to cover the entire field. And I think that's where Buffalo needs to go, is on the defensive back end. I talked about San Francisco needing a linebacker. I think when you look at them, uh, two down stiff linebackers are absolute dinosaurs in today's day and age. You need space players. You need guys that can get out and run, survive against spread looks, because these offenses are just going to keep on getting faster and faster and faster. You look at it at the college. College is just going to it's going to just matriculate right up to the NFL game. And then, you look at Chicago, a team that we just talked about. Offensive line, you got to go protect your quarterback. He's through three picks. He did play an incredible football game, and really, if you look at the game before that, there was some heroics there too. But it's definitely a need. Interior pressure and tackle play are just you gotta save your quarterback. You can't ruin a guy like Caleb Williams by not going and finding protection for him, whether through the draft, through free agency. But when you look at it in today's day and age, you really got to go youth, draft, build that line, build that offensive line, and really the defensive line as well. And really, when you look at it, the fun part for us is connecting, all of this NFL right back to Mobile. And you look at Bears fans, and I mean, they could potentially be watching a guy that we're familiar with, and Fernando Carmona Jr., a quarterback, a tackle here in Arkansas, and also a guy like Emmanuel Pregnan. He also looks inside as well. You look at the Bills, you get defensive backs. Zyke Wheatley is a guy that really could stand out for them. K'Ron Crawford is a defensive line / linebacker guy that I think the Niners fans would really enjoy seeing. You're going to hear a little more from the Arkansas guys like Fernando Carmona. You'll hear from Crawford. You'll hear a little bit more about Bryson Eason as well. But if you're watching right now, drop your team and drop your biggest need in the chat. Is it O-line? Is it quarterback, DB, edge? I'll put a few of those into the next block, and we will get them on air and all that good stuff. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into a little bit of a shopping list as we talk who might be players that have, or who has their eye on what type of player down in Mobile, all that more. We'll get into it. Stick around. We'll be right back right here on the Sports Buffet Breakfast Edition Senior Bowl Warmup Sunday show right here on 4-Star Sports Media Network. All this week is presented to you by Craters Freighters Memphis, as you're inside the Craters Freighters Memphis Studio. These are not your just throw it on a conveyor belt and hope type of people. If you've got camera equipment, medical gear, industrial hardware, giant pianos, museum pieces, and more, anything oversized, fragile, awkward, or expensive, this is where Craters Freighters gets it done, and they get it done the perfect way. They build the crate, pack it, and ship it where it needs to go. They handle domestic freight, international, or ocean, and also white glove delivery. They'll even come to your place if you can't and move the item for you. They serve Memphis, Jackson, Tupelo, Jonesboro, and beyond, and they're obsessed with getting your stuff there intact and on time. Hit CratersandFreightersMemphis.com and let them know that Sports Buffet and 4-Star Sports Media sent you their way. And make sure your shipping headache is their problem. If you're hanging out on YouTube, hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. We appreciate everyone watching and listening. That tells the algorithm that there are Senior Bowl sickos out there like yourself. And if you're on X, tweet the show with the player you're most excited to see and Mobile. And we're going to read them off a little bit later when we get to the Senior Bowl mailbag portion of the show. All right, let's jump over to number 2 portion of the show, and that is Senior Bowl shopping list. Back on the Sports Buffet from the Craters Freighters Memphis Studio, and it's shopping time. Every team flies into Mobile with a list, not just positions, but also prototypes. And we're going to give you the positions that typically make the money down in Mobile, and we'll also give you the actual names that you should circle if you're watching practice clips on social media and such. Tier 1, okay? These are money positions. Number 1 is quarterback. The question is, though, with the quarterbacks in this draft, is can they really run your offense? Is that really what these players can do? Quarterback room this year is going to be a lot of fun. There's no Caleb, there's no Lawrence, there's no Luck, there's Locke. There's 4 guys who I think can change their neighborhood on draft boards with one strong week down in Mobile. And it's 4 guys that really I've enjoyed watching throughout their college careers. And when you go back and you really look at who we are as a media brand, and you look at how this game has really become a staple for us in our coverage, and you look at guys like Calvin Austin, you look at guys like Dylan Parham, we were down there 4 years ago. We're going to talk more about that momentarily. But you look at these 4 guys who have grown throughout their college careers to get to this point. And I'm going to start with Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. I think he's a pure gunslinger. He's got an incredible arm. He's fearless when throwing the ball down the field. The question is, can he put 3 really good days back to back to back together and prove that he can handle the NFL verbiage and progressions without falling apart? Next up, and it's a guy that's going to be specialized and been focused on here at 4-Star Sports. We call him 4-Star Special. But it's Taylon Green from the Arkansas Razorbacks. 6'5", 230 pounds. Kid has legit wheels. He came from Boise State. We had a chance to watch him when he was at Boise State when he took on Memphis. He runs, we've said it for the past 3 years now, he runs like a gazelle and takes vertical shots without fear. And this week is a referendum week for him. Does he look like a traits guy, or does he look like a system pilot who can command an NFL huddle? Also, is he going to take care of the ball this week for 3 consecutive days? Like I said, this quarterback room, you have to watch a few things, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. And the next guy, I think, is a guy who is tough as a $2 steak. And I'm talking about Luke Altmaier from Illinois. Kid continues to get hit. Physical player. You're playing in the Brett Bielema offense. You have to be a physical quarterback. But now he has to prove that he has the arm talent and the decision making to be better than a quote good quarterback, a good locker room guy who is going to be a backup. And then finally, it's another 4-star special. It's a guy that I've had my eye on since he was at New Mexico State. Incredible quarterback, Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt. Obviously, we know the Hollywood script, right? Vanderbilt's first Heisman finalist, north of a little bit over 3,500 yards passing, almost 900 rushing, 39 total touchdowns, 10-win season in Nashville. He is probably the most polarizing quarterback in the entire room. When you look at him from a attitude perspective, a lot of people say he's pompous. You can say he's cocky. That's fine. But Mobile is where the league decides if a Heisman runner-up, is it just a cute story or is it a franchise piece? And that's going to be a very intriguing story to watch. And it's going to be a focus of us. Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt. Is he a franchise guy? Or is it just a cute story at Vanderbilt? We're going to find out because when you watch the quarterbacks, you're watching their command, you're watching how they process, you watch how they make corrections. And for the 4 guys I was mentioning, Nussmeier, Pavia, Altmaier, and Green, all 4 can walk out of Mobile with a completely different label than what they walk in with. Speaking of walking in different than they walk out. If the division round has, and just speaking on the division round specifically, if it's made one thing obvious is that if your offensive line is soft in January, your season's going to end very early, which is why the offensive line is the number 2 money position for us in Mobile. Again, I've got 4 players. Fernando Carmona from Arkansas, he's All-American tackle. He's got a humongous frame. When he gets his hands on you, you're really stuck. He's nasty. If he can stack good reps against top edge players, he could potentially go from a regional name that Hogs fans love to a top 100 conversation for the coaches in attendance. Also from the SEC, you've got long, mean Austin Barber from Florida. Can he put it together? Or is he going to panic against guys like Karan Crawford and others? If he doesn't panic, he's going to climb the boards. You look on the inside, you've got Emmanuel Pregram. We talked about him from Oregon. He's transferred over from USC. This year, 0 sacks for 15 games. Most O-line coaches, a lot of O-line coaches have his name highlighted in their books. Keelan Rutledge, Georgia Tech, 330-pound stud. But if you're a Bills fan, if you're a Bears fan, if you're a team in the NFL and you are needing protection, this week is going to be a big week for you. This week, you're going to have a lot of eyes on that specific offensive line room, and there's a plethora of talent there. Money position number 3 is edge rusher. Perhaps the deepest room in all of Mobile. It's loaded with guys who can get coaches fired or extended based on whether you make the right draft pick or not. Let's start with Karan Crawford. It's going to be one of our 4-star specials. Out of Auburn, SEC talent, 6'4", 255. He's got quick twitch muscles. Young man's from the Memphis area, from Memphis. He had a pick, forced fumble, 5 sacks this year. People around the league are quietly talking about him as a potential dark horse to make the potential most money with a huge jump. He can rush. He can drop back in coverage. He can play on his feet. He's a young man that I am really keeping my eye on. When you look at guys like Carmona on the offensive line, things like that, that matchup right there is one that I'm really going to have my eye on. Another guy from the SEC, Zion Young out of Missouri. Long, can play the ball, still give you the juice as a rusher. If he can stack good days, if he can put them together in 3 consecutive days, it's going to be very, very interesting to see. You got a guy like Ruben Bain from Miami. Obviously, we know what Ruben can do. He's down there out of Miami, Florida. Talented football player. He's going to be another one to watch. Deepest room in Mobile has to be the edge. It has to be. And then when you go to tier 2, you've got matchup makers. Okay, you've got what I want to look at is some very versatile defensive backs in this group. It's a room that has got guys that, I mean, if you're a team like Buffalo, if you're a team like Houston, if you're numerous teams across the league, the hybrid defensive back room might have some very sneaky, valuable players in Mobile that you can that you either already have your eye on or you can watch them make a jump throughout the week. You look at Will Lee, the third out of Texas A&M, physical, checks the prototype box on site, big kid, long. If he can clean up his technique, he's a plug-and-play outside corner. Really interested to see how he does against a wide receiver room, which we're going to talk about throughout the week. Charles Deming, Stephen F. Austin, he's a 4-star special. We're going to talk about him, 6'1", 185, 4.4 speed, elite speed. He went to Stephen F. Austin. We talk about the Chris Hope Foundation, Moment of Hope. Mobile's where a guy like Demings can go from a who to a O. We've seen it. We watched Gregory Jr. from Watchtower Baptist go from a who to a O. If he can win one-on-one reps, it's the most important rep of the week for him. One-on-one reps for him. If he can get some wins, very, very interesting to see how he can move up the board this week. And then you look at another guy, Toledo, Emmanuel Warren, big athletic safety, rise or buzz. If he can communicate and cover like a pro, he'll be a guy that every defensive coach will be texting their scouting buddies about for sure. And then Zakee Wheatley, Penn State, 6 career picks. He played deep, and he can play deep and up on the line. He's really a rotational guy. You can put him at either safety position. You can really stick him at a nickel as well. He's got the physicality to come up and make tackles. He can also go and make plays on the ball. He's got really good ball skills. 6 career picks, like I said, can play back in coverage, but also you can stick him up on the line, and he's got the athleticism to make the play. If you're a Bills fan, if you're a Texans fan, if you're a Niners fan, or if you love corners, this is going to be the room for you. And if you can pull potentially one of the guys mentioned, plus there's other loads of talent in this room. You can pull one of these guys, you can potentially begin to tighten up your defense where you're not sitting there giving up 30 burgers every week. And the last one on tier 2 is it's a position that a lot of people seem to forget about, a lot of people value, but some seem to forget about, and that is the tight end position. And I think when you look at the tight end, it's a safety valve for essentially every quarterback. And then they're also chain movers. It's a guy, these are guys that can continuously move the chains when you need it. And they also always steal a little bit of money at the Senior Bowl because the install is simple. Quarterbacks lean on guys who can separate and block just enough. But that's the thing, is you've got to be able to do both. You have to be a versatile tight end, meaning you can line up, you can get down and nasty, you can go block with the big nasties next to you, the offensive lineman that we talked about a minute ago in tier 1 of the positions that are money makers. But you've also got to, in today's day and age of football, you've also got to be able to go make a play down the field, go make a catch, and be a target in the red zone. These guys have to make a name for themselves, and they have to start immediately. You look back a few years ago, there was a tight end from Miami of Ohio. Day one began really starting making a day for themselves. You look at this year, for example, kid from Wyoming, Trey Gillenborg. He's played in line, in the slot. He's even snuck into the backfield. He can become an O because that's who maybe Talon has been throwing to in the red zone, right? If he can make that, if he can make those plays that Talon or whoever's throwing the ball to him, if he can make those plays, he can make a move. And also, when you see a quarterback that continuously starts going to a guy, that means there's a little bit of trust there. There's a little bit of connection there. He becomes his go-to guy when things get muddy. It's a name you can start seeing moving up day 2, day 3, mock drafts. All right, let's do a quick stock up, stock down. So I think stock up, when you look at slap some names on these prototypes that we've been talking about. You go stock up, stock down. Let's go stock up to start. I think when you look at versatile DBs, we talked about them. I think these guys have major stock moving up. You look at the offenses across the league, you have to have a defensive back that can almost play corner and really safety or nickel, but you've got to have a guy who is very versatile and who can cover and make plays against different size offensive players, because you've got to be able to come back in the backfield and make a tackle against a guy like a Derrick Henry, but then you've got to turn around and go be able to stay with a wide receiver like a Tyreek Hill, for example. Okay, all interior offensive lines, always a money player, but a guy who can move and a guy who can also present an anchor. That's when you look at these offenses of today, the offensive lines are not stationary anymore. Pretty much everybody, including center, is going to be pulling in one way, shape, or fashion. And it's a lot of fun to watch. But you've got to have a guy who is athletic, but who is also can be that anchor. I think you look Rutledge, for example, the player I talked about just a minute ago, is a guy who really can make some money for himself or make a name, which in return makes money for themselves during this week in Mobile. And then finally, edge rushers, a guy who can also rush and drop. In other words, versatile. All three of these positions, versatile. A guy like Karan Crawford, okay, really can come up, make plays. TJ Parker, same way. Really can come up and make plays, but also can step back into coverage and still make plays off the edge. You look at the offenses, the way they're shoving the edges out, the way they're hooking those edges, they have to be versatile and be able to get off of blocks. And then stock down, and I'm not going to name names, but Stiff two-down linebackers. You need guys, like I just said, guys who are active, guys who can really, really move the pocket. And then also, you need more than just guys who can just chunk the ball down the field. Again, mobile, athletic, versatile. It's really just a common theme. Quarterbacks. Can you do both? Can you throw on the run? Can you take care of the football? And then are you making corrections? Are you making mistakes and then the coach is correcting you and then that correction is being put into practice? And then tackling from a defensive perspective all the way across. You can't treat tackling like it's optional, especially this week. If you can't tackle this week, you're going to be exposed very quickly. Very quickly. But you also just can't look at the ball, right? You got to go look at guys. You got to look at how they work one-on-ones and team drills. But this is where GMs and scouts and others really decide who they're willing to sit down and have conversations with, because all these players are going to have conversations with the NFL teams in attendance. And that's exactly why we're going to be live all week here at 4-Star Sports Media from the Craters and Freighters Memphis Studio. But that's what this week's about. This week's about the interview process. This week's about practices, improvements, whether it's small or it's large, improvements. That's what this week is about, and it's very important. It's very important. All right. Up next, we're going to talk hoops. Texas Tech, UNC, Houston, UConn are playing incredible basketball. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on at Memphis. You got Arkansas are really showing us who's a pretender and who's a contender. And also, if there's any more projects. But we'll also but before we do that, let's go ahead and have our first Chris Hope Foundation moment of hope. So every show leading into the Senior Bowl week and during the week, we're going to carve out a moment of hope, which is presented to you by the Chris Hope Foundation. While future pros are chasing NFL dreams in Mobile, the Chris Hope Foundation is walking with families whose kids are literally just trying to make it to tomorrow. The Chris Hope Foundation was honored with naming rights of the Chris Hope Foundation NICU Infant Development Room at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. This room is built for the smallest, tiniest, sickest babies in the city of Memphis. And they have specialized equipment with a calm environment where families can bond and breathe even when everything else feels like chaos. So, for those of you that don't know, I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. Also, I was born a premature baby. In 1985, when you're born at 1.5 pounds, your survival rate at that time was very low. So Le Bonheur is very near and dear to me. I spent the large portion of the beginning of my life in a incubator in Le Bonheur. And with that, I understand the word hope. My family understands the word hope. And in the first moment of hope, as we start this week, and this is an emotional week for me, but the Chris Hope Foundation steps in with real world help. They help by paying bills so lights can stay on. They help by helping them with visits and support where insurance and hospital systems stop. And it's hope that shows up with a full tank of gas, a bill paid, and a reminder that these families are not alone. So if you're able, head over to chrishopefoundation.org today. A small donation, a social share, a volunteer form, any of this can be the first step in a family's comeback story. As this is your opening moment of hope presented by the Chris Hope Foundation. But as we get deeper into it, and there's an article series out at our website now, fourstar.live, and it talks a little bit more about my personal journey back to Mobile. But the word hope goes all the way back 40 years ago, 41 years ago, to the very beginning for me. And so Chris Hope Foundation, just everything about them and LeBonner and all that just hits home with me. And they're a beautiful foundation and one that really does need more love. All right, let's jump back over on the sports buffet. Welcome back. Beautiful Chris Hope moment of hope right there. Just start the week. That's one thing that I'm really looking forward to this week. Another thing I'm really looking forward to is hoops, as we talk contenders, pretenders, and projects right here on the Sports Buffet Senior Bowl warm-up as we get ready, as we kick off the Senior Bowl coverage currently in Fayetteville, Arkansas, very snowy Fayetteville, Arkansas. But back on Senior Bowl Sunday warm-up, college hoops gave us a very, very Senior Bowl feeling Sunday. Big spots, big swings, and some teams proving that they belong, while also some teams proving that they didn't. All right, so let's start with the Memphis Tigers. All right, if you look at Memphis, they're struggling. They're having problems. They got blown out by Tulsa. Then they turn around and get blown out by the Shockers of Wichita State. And now they're stuck in Wichita. They're stuck. They can't go anywhere. There's articles out now. I mean, Penny's come out and just said, hey, I don't know how to fix this. They're averaging about 20 fouls a game, which is one of the worst in the country. Sloppy basketball, turning it over. Like I said, terrible times. And in a one-bid league situation, Memphis is now fighting to potentially even make the conference tournament in the American. And that's not the Americans' fault, folks. That's Penny Hardaway. That's the Memphis Tigers' fault. But in a one-bid league situation, you cannot do what they're doing, and that is now 3 consecutive losses in conference play on the road. It's hard to watch, man. I mean, Memphis was absolutely embarrassed yesterday. Embarrassed on national TV in Wichita. All right, let's come up here to Fayetteville, Arkansas, man. It's hoops. Looks like an SEC version of the NFL playoff as teams are trying to peak at the right time. John Calipari is leading the Arkansas Razorbacks in there, down in the top 25. And yeah, I know it still feels really, really weird to see Cal in red and white. It just does. Sorry, it just does. Razorbacks are going to be in the tournament. Memphis is going to struggle to make their conference tournament. But length, guard play, defending at a high level, utilizing youth. I mean, Darius Acuff Jr. is just incredible. He is fun to watch, one of the top freshmen in the country. And all this is going to translate over to March. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It fits a program that's stacked up more than 20 regular conference season titles and a handful of league titles since in its history. And in March, It translates to extra possessions, free throws, and the ability to take an ugly game and come up with a win. And that's something that this Arkansas team has been able to do time and time again. You look at them yesterday, we're trailing to LSU, came back, beat LSU. That's the 11th time Arkansas has come back to defeat LSU. That is the most in all of their opponents since joining the SEC. 11th time to come back and defeat LSU when trailing in halftime. So you look at Arkansas, they've got some gumption in them, they've got some fight, they've got some desire to win. You look at across the nation, North Carolina walked into Charlottesville, got down by double digits, and then flipped the game with a big-time win on the ACC. UConn survived a scare, Villanova as well. And you look around the country, and you look at pretenders, you look at teams that contenders or projects. I think number one contender right now, I think Texas Tech's really, really good now. Let's not get it twisted. Houston's really good. But let's not forget about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Undefeated right now. I believe they're 20-0 on the season. You got to keep your eye on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. When you look at Arkansas, I think they're absolutely a contender, top-tier SEC team. They're also tournament tested. You look at their roster. They played everybody that was in the Elite Eight, all 8 teams. Their roster's built around youth length defense and guards who can absolutely close out games. I think they're absolute contender for sure. I think when you look at Memphis, for example, I think that's a project, and that's a real upside to even call it that. That's sad. They're just struggling, man. They're just struggling, and I don't think they're going to make the tournament. And I could very well see them having a coaching change to close the year. All right, let's jump over to the NBA side. As we saw, Saturday's stat sheets had the usual January chaos. A couple of young guys and role players dropping 25, 38, and 30 in wins and losses. That's basically the NBA Senior Bowl. Dudes taking advantage of random windows of opportunity. Same thing that we're pretty much going to see down in Mobile. You've got first rounders, day 2 guys, and day 3 projects all in one place. The job is going to be figuring out who's who before everyone else does. We'll have a full weekend notebooks on hoops and Senior Bowl storylines up at 4-Star Sports Media. And every written piece is going to be brought to you by the Chris Hope Foundation. They're shining a light on families in a fight way tougher than a 2-possession ball game. Coming up, we're going to get to a little buffet bites as we talk wrestling, a little bit of UFL spring football, a little bit of minor league baseball, a little bit of live golf, and we got a couple of questions as we flip to hour 2 of the show. As we get you to watch the Senior Bowl like a scout. All that and more right here on the Sports Buffet, presented by 4-Star Sports Media. All right, let's hit some buffet quick bites, and then we'll close out hour number 1, buffet bites, as we close out the first hour. A quick plate of everything else that's going on in the sports world. We'll talk wrestling as WWE, AEW, and also TNA Wrestling are also all loading up angles on the road to their next big shows. When you look at WWE, they had Saturday night's main event take place last night, and then you've got Royal Rumble taking place this upcoming Saturday afternoon from Saudi. And you've got TNA, big time show coming up this Thursday night on AMC, and Sunday night, tomorrow night, WWE, it will be live on WWE Raw on Netflix. When you look at spring football, as the UFL, as we covered that, as well as we take a road trip across all the sports that we cover on Buffet Bites as we close out the first hour of the show. But the UFL released a full schedule. As it's locked, it means they are right around the corner, and that's another league that really presents a lot of hope. There's really no off-season anymore, which is really kind of fun, honestly. It's really kind of fun. All right, you look at MILB, that's the minor league baseball. Clubs are finalizing their spring training invites and minor league assignments. Prospects are going to start fighting to move into organizational depth as we have a plan, as we start to create plans for these people. We have staffs that have been unveiled. Brooks Conrad here in Northwest Arkansas will be back for year number 2 for the Northwest Arkansas Naturals as we continue wall-to-wall coverage of sports here in Northwest Arkansas as we cover the Naturals specifically. But it feels a lot like kind of what we're about to see in Mobile, Alabama, as the Senior Bowl mimics a lot of the minor league baseball system, as you've got guys that are continually fighting. I've watched it personally with my eyes on a day-to-day basis. These guys will continually fight to be the best they can be. And then you look on the golf side, Liv and PGA are dialing up another year of storylines as team golf brands trying to carve out more of your brain space all year long, and it's going to be a lot of fun doing it. It's going to be a lot of fun doing it. All right, we got to say big thanks to Craters and Freighters as we do a quick reset from the Panini Senior Bowl is next Saturday, January 31st. FanFest is from 10:30 to 1 on the southwest lawn at Hancock Whitney Stadium. Kickoff is at 1:30 Central, and you can be watched over on the NFL Network. Walk around FanFest, eat, play, high-five future pros as they walk on the path to the draft team walk as well. We got to give a big thanks to Craters and Freighters Memphis as they move the biggest, heaviest, most fragile stuff so you don't have to, folks. It makes it easier. They make it easier on you. And speaking of making it easier, we got to give a shout out to the Chris Hope Foundation as they hold it down for families in the city of Memphis where everything feels like it's falling apart. All right, folks, hour number 2 is coming up as we tell you how to watch the Senior Bowl like a scout. I know that sounds crazy. We'll do stock up, stock down on prototypes. Plus, we'll take some of your questions that you have. If you want to shoot them in the comment section, we'll get them to them. We'll get to them here shortly. Don't move. This is Sports Buffet live on YouTube and X on the 4-Star Sports Media Network. Welcome back in, folks. Hour number 2 of Sports Buffet on a Sunday, live on YouTube and X from the Craters and Freighters Memphis Studio. If you just jumped in, welcome to your Senior Bowl Sunday warm-up. We're going to be a national hub for the Panini Senior Bowl, which kicks off next Saturday, January 31st, 1:30 p.m. Central Time, right there at Hancock Whitney Stadium in beautiful Mobile, Alabama. Game day, Fan Fest from 10:30 to noon on the Southwest lawn. There'll be food, inflatables, yard games, mascots, all free. Then the Path to Draft team walk, which is a lot of fun. And the game kicks off at 1:30. It's basically football's Disneyland for draft nerds like myself and families. If you're watching right now over on YouTube, be sure and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. That way you know when we are live. Give us a follow if you're watching on X. We'll be all over practice clips, riser talk, and your questions all week, as we will be presenting Panini Primetime every night, starting tomorrow night, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's 1 hour every night, starting tomorrow night through Saturday night. Nightly, Panini Primetime, breaking down all things Senior Bowl. Speaking of the Senior Bowl, now let's talk about how you, yes, you, the fan, can watch the Senior Bowl like a scout. I know, it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? Sounds kind of crazy. If you've ever watched the Senior Bowl as one more football game, if you're only watching it as just the last game of the year, you're really missing out. Now, the real action is in practice. The notes and the scouts and the notes that the scouts make on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are really what matter. But you've got practice versus the game. Okay, step one is understanding the priorities. Okay, practice, especially the one-on-ones and full speed team periods, matter more than the game. The game is like a final exam. Practice is the bulk of the grade. Okay. Now, we here at 4-Star Sports Media want to help you as the fan, as the watcher, help you watch the game a little more deeper, a little more in depth. Okay, so what to watch? Now, quarterbacks, you want to watch timing, footwork, corrections. Did they fix a bad rep on the next rep? If that makes sense. Okay, so like, did they throw an interception and come back very next play? It's a pass play. Boom. Did they make the right read? Are they late on outbreaking routes? Can they spit out a long ball? Can they be on time? Two guys specifically, Taylor Green and Diego Pavia, 2 4-star specials, 2 guys we're going to follow. This week is everything for them. Green is trying to come in and prove that he's not just traits and highlights. He's a guy that you can trust to run your system. And for Diego Pavia, he's trying to prove that he's not just a Vanderbilt Heisman beautiful story. That the 3,500 yards, 900 yards on the ground, 20 and 39 touchdowns were not just a fun story, that it translates to the NFL level. We talked about in the first hour, we talked about 4 quarterbacks that really can stand to have good weeks. 2 of those, Taylor Green and Diego Pavia, who we will be focusing on. But then when you look at matchups, the next one's going to be wide receiver and defensive back, and that actually fits in with quarterback because the quarterback has to make the right throw. But when you look at wide receiver, defensive backs, one-on-ones, this is where these guys make their names. We watched it with Greg Jr. One-on-ones is where they make their names. For wide receivers, you're watching their release. You're watching the separation. You're watching transition. You're watching the route. How crisp are they? On the flip side of that, for the defensive back, you're watching the hips, recovery, how quick can they get out of the false step. Like I said, this is where guys like Charles Demings, for example, can make money. And then the trenches. I mean, you look at the national championship game. We talked about how great Miami was in the trenches all season, and you look at what happened to them in the national championship game. This is where championships are won. And in the trenches, you got to watch hands, leverage, and balance. And this is where Fernando Carmona, if they lose a rep, do they lose slow? Do they lose under control with a chance? Or do they just get absolutely forklift? If they lose the right way, a scout's generally okay with that. They love it. That tells them that the technique is real, that the body just needed some adjusting. And then lastly in the matchups is going to be safeties and linebackers. And in 7-on-7 and team, you always look for one big thing, that's communication. And with a lot of these hybrid backers, the guys that we talked about in the first hour, are they communicating? But are they communicating properly? Are they pointing? Are they talking? Are they getting guys lined up? Are they on time? Dropping to where they need to get to? That's all things that coaches are going to have their eyes on. And on the converse of that, conversely, the coaches are going to be looking for red flags. Linemen who only win one way. If that way fails, the rep's done. They're beat. We talked about it earlier. Tackling is not optional. Defensive backs who avoid contact. Business decisions show up fast in Mobile because these are NFL coaches running them through these drills. And trust me, there's no give. I've heard the conversations very close. And then quarterbacks who, as the install gets heavier, and each day of practice, the install gets heavier, do they shrink as the install gets heavier? If day 3 looks worse than day 1, that's a big problem. So I see I've got a couple of comments. I'm gonna push them. I have a segment at the end. It's the mailbag, but I got a couple of chat prompts for the people watching. What quarterback do you want us? What position do you want us to zero in on Tuesday's practice, opening practice? Quarterback, offensive line, defensive back, or edge? Get those in the comments section. We'll tally them up, and we'll focus on that on Tuesday, in addition to all the players that we're taking care of. And then secondly is, when you watch All-Star games, what do you actually watch? Do you watch traits? Do you watch helmets? Meaning, oh, that guy plays at Alabama, he's good. Oh, that guy plays at, for example, Stephen F. Austin. Or do you watch vibes? Because just like Craters and Freighters designs each crate for what's inside, weight, fragility, destination, NFL teams are trying to design roles around what these guys are actually doing and what they do well. You don't ship $1 million machine in a cardboard box. You also don't ask a zone corner to live in the press man all day. You just don't. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go stock up, stock down on prototypes tie them back to the divisional round. And then we'll also highlight more of the Arkansas and four-star guys that we're going to be talking to and diving into down in Mobile, Alabama. All that and more right here on the Four Star
Part of the
Sports
show? Text
Media
into
Network.
the Fanatics Fan Zone line now.
All written coverage this week is presented to you by the Chris Hope Foundation. It's fueled by the Chris Hope Foundation and Hope. While we're talking about who's going to the NFL, the next NFL rosters, they are focused on making sure families can literally survive while their child fight for their lives. Paying bills, filling gas tanks, and filling gap insurance doesn't touch. They've been honored by the Chris Hope Foundation NICU Infant Development Room at Le Bonheur. It's a space near and dear to my heart, but it's a space for premature and critically ill babies to grow and for their parents to catch a breath in the middle of an absolute hellstorm. That is impact that you can see and touch. And if that hits home for you, because it does me, check out chrishopefoundation.org. Donate, share, sign up to help, because every single bit pushes their beautiful, beautiful mission that much further. All right, back here on the Sports Buffet inside the Craters and Freighters Memphis Studios, live on YouTube and X. Appreciate everyone watching and listening. Appreciate the comments. We got some comments going as well. We appreciate them. We will get to them here momentarily. Let's open up the scouting notebook. Let's do a little stock up, stock down on some players with Mobile as the proving ground. So let's go stock up on three different guys. Let's look at edges who can rush and drop. Divisional round sealed it. If you can't pressure high-end quarterbacks, you're done. Guys like T.J. Parker, Kieran Crawford, Zion Young, L.T. Overton are the exact type of edge body that the league is looking for. Guys who can rush from multiple alignments and not be lost when they're asked to drop back into coverage. Number two is versatile defensive backs. We talked about it in hour one. We continue to talk about it now. You look at guys need people who can cover slot receivers. They can also need guys who can come up, hit the run, and make solid tackles. Tackling is not optional, as we've talked about. You need Swiss Army defensive backs who can let their defensive coordinators get some sleep at night. Zakee Wheatley, Dalen Everett, Emmanuel Warren. These type of guys can come in and make an instant impact on their teams. You look across the league, you look at how these players have been able to make the jump from college to NFL. It's been very impressive to see. Very, very impressive to see. And then finally, we talked about it earlier, you need athletic interior offensive linemen. You get squeezed in the A-gaps, it's a problem. But guards and centers who can move and communicate are absolute gold. Look at Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. You look at Emmanuel Pringham from Oregon. Two guys that are strong, light enough to be on their feet to be able to handle stunts and blitz packages, but can also get out and move when need be. But more importantly, they can be an anchor. They can be an anchor for that offensive line to keep these guys healthy. Got to be able to do that. And then don't forget the big fellas inside. You got Cameron Ball for Arkansas. You got Bryson Eason out of Tennessee as well. Cam Ball brings a little bit of hogs, a lot of bit of hogs power, a lot of length, and a lot of versatility. He's great, great, great flip of the hips. When he throws his hips, it's over with. He's gonna move you out of the way. You get Bryson Eason over 90 tackles, more than 20 tackles for loss in his Tennessee career, and he's finally healthy, folks. That's a big thing for Bryson. Finally healthy. Those are your stop the run on the way to the quarterback guys that teams are looking for, and that's two guys that you're going to hear a lot more about this week in coverage. You look at stock down. Again, we're going to talk prototypes, not names on stock down. But we talked about corners that will not tackle. If you treat tackling like a suggestion, you're not going to make it. Your stock is going to plummet this week. You have to step in and be physical day one as a corner or really anybody on defense. You have to be physical. If not, you're not going to get looked at. You're going to get looked over for sure. Now, I will say this. Quarterbacks who only have one speed for their ball, if you can't take a little bit off, if you don't have touch, if you can't live on schedule, you're going to be in trouble this week because you're going against guys like Reuben Bain. You're going against guys like Kieran Crawford. You're going against guys like Cameron Ball, Bryson Eason, others across the nation that are coming in from multiple levels of football, all levels of football that are coming in. The Senior Bowl is the number one college all-star game. There's a reason they say the path to the draft starts in Mobile because it's factual. And talking about stock down prototypes, if you're a two-down linebacker who just puts his hand on the ground, you can't run, you can't get out and cover, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. Drop your team and one prototype you want. You want a big slot, you want a space backer, you want a 3-tech, you want a hybrid nickel. Like I said, I'll kick around a couple live, but you got to think beyond position. Think type of player that your roster is missing. Craters Freighters gets trusted with sensitive electronics and heavy industrial gear because you don't wing it with that type of stuff, right, folks? Same thing with these prototypes. Interior offensive lineman, hybrid DBs, game-ending edges. You treat those picks like they're fragile, expensive, and mission critical. On the other side, we're going to hit weekend leftovers and a Senior Bowl mailbag. Quick hits from around sports, your questions, and then we'll reset the path from practice to kickoff next Saturday in Mobile. All right, folks, let's clean out the fridge and have a little weekend's leftover time, and then we'll hit some of your questions. All right, leftovers number one. The NFL, Bills, Broncos in overtime. The Seahawks embarrassed the 49ers. Texans got taken out by the Patriots. And then the Rams outlasted the Bears. Trenches, edges, hybrid defenses. If your team doesn't invest in those spots, you're not going to have longevity in the playoffs. You look at leftover number two, you look at college hoops, you look across the country, you look at teams like Texas Tech, you look at teams like UConn, you look at teams like Nebraska, you look at teams like Houston, you look across the league, across the nation, BYU, that freshman at BYU is absolutely incredible. You look at this league, college hoops, get ready, folks. The game's getting bigger. Their games are getting bigger. And there's going to be a lot of risers this year in college basketball. And that NCAA tournament, oh my gosh, get ready. It's going to be absolutely insane. All right, then leftover number three, you got spring ball. And I want to talk about it from a couple different levels. You look at the UFL, their season is set. So once the confetti falls and the Senior Bowl wraps, football diehards like myself, we'll get a little reset, and then we're right back into it with meaningful reps. And you look at spring, you look at spring training. You've got baseball right around the corner. As prospects are fighting for spring training roles. Liv and PGA are also getting ready to tee it up, smack it off the tee, as they have very interesting storylines. As you've seen, Liv golfers go back to PGA and more. It's all part of the buffet, a little bit of everything, as we call it, or as we like to call it, a plateful. But we've been doing it all year long, and we're going to continue that way. All right, let's go to the mailbag real quick, as we've got a couple of comments here. See, John Sturdivant said, if you had to guess right now, where would you draft Pavia and Green? I think 4th round for both, or 5th. Like I said in hour number 1, this week is vital for both of those players. Both of those players have to, without question, be able to retain the information, correct the mistakes, make the right read, make the right throw, have the right footwork in order to get out of that 3rd, 4th round. I think both those players are 3rd, 4th round, and I think they can improve their stock. But they've got to do it. It's not going to be easy for either one of those players, Pavia or Green. It's not going to be easy. As far as what teams would be a good fit for them, I mean, really, I really got to see how they do this week. I really do. I really have to see how they do it this week. And we appreciate you reposting the stream as well. All right, let's go to mailbag. So I got a question for you guys. What position would you never take in round 1? That's question number 1. What position would you never take in round 1 of the draft? It's going to sound crazy. I would never take. I would never take a tight end in the 1st round of the draft. I wouldn't. Reason being, there's too many players who hold more value to your roster from a scheme standpoint, from a protection standpoint, from a roster just importance of the position standpoint, to take a tight end in the 1st round. So a position that you never take, I would never take a tight end in the 1st round. Question number 2. More important at the Senior Bowl, one dominant day or 3 days stacked together? Now, some may say, Wes, this is a stupid question. I understand why you would say that. But I'll also say this. For me, personally, it's 3 solid days, because I think coaches want to see that consistency. Scouts want to see the dominance, but the consistency matters. The correction of mistakes, the intake of the system that's being put in, all that matters. And being able to do that for 3 consecutive days, that really matters. I've watched it, and we're getting ready to watch it again. But on the flip side of that, I've also seen guys who have come in, made a big, massive play day 1, day 2, for example, really exploded day 2, and their name gets mentioned everywhere. But now, what is more important for the longevity for your NFL career? I think it's 3 straight days. And then finally, and by the way, for those of you listening to this podcast later on down the line, if you want to send us a message, you're more than welcome to with these answers. What is the best football week? Is it Senior Bowl? Is it Conference Championship? Or is it Draft Week? Now, for all you draft sickos out there, I mean, I obviously know this answer. It's pretty easy. For me, it's simple. It's Senior Bowl week. It's been this way for the last. It's been this way for the last probably 10 years. This game is just even longer, probably 15 years. This game is a blast to watch. I love watching this game. I love watching how these players progress and regress throughout the week. I mean, you talk about the Chris Hope Foundation. You talk about them providing hope. That's what this week really is. It really boils down to. Some of these guys coming in, Charles Demings, the kid from Toledo. We talked about hour number one. We looked at Greg Jr. when we were down there in 2020. But you look and these guys were just putting it all on the line. And it's important to them. It's important to their families. They have a week full of events. They're meeting with NFL teams. There's a parade Friday night. There's press conferences all day long. There's practices for 2 hours every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Mobile is a week-long event for these players. And they're sitting down and getting grilled by numerous NFL teams daily. I mean, you look, and as we talk about futures and careers, don't forget the Chris Hope Foundation is fighting a much tougher battle with families that are in the NICU unit and beyond. ChrisHopeFoundation.org if you want to jump in and be a teammate. And speaking of teammates, as you might remember, equipment, all this stuff that's about to descend on Mobile, it doesn't just transport itself. I mean, that's why we lean on people like Craters and Freighters Memphis. When the words fragile and expensive are the same thing to them. They're on the same line. It doesn't bother them. And Craters and Freighters Memphis you're going to hear a lot more about this company, I promise you, throughout the week as we push to the path to Saturday, as we get close to wrapping up the show. But you look at the path to Saturday, and before we get there, let's zoom back out. A week from now, we will be talking about who stole the show at Hancock Whitney Stadium as the Panini Senior Bowl kicks off this upcoming Saturday, the 31st, 1:30 p.m. And if you love football, this is the Super Bowl before the Super Bowl. Future pros, NFL coaches, and GMs all converge on one city. It's a city that we're going to get deeper into tomorrow night when we talk Panini Primetime. But it turns into an absolute football convention, and the entire city loves the game. It's an all-star game where the practices matter just as much, if not more, than the scoreboard at the end of the game. And it's a game when couldn't have found a better person, two different people to partner with for this year's trip. Craters and Freighters Memphis, our official studio and shipping partner. The folks who move the biggest, heaviest, and most fragile stuff to events like this can even help. And then to the Chris Hope Foundation, presenting all of our written coverage and pouring hope into foundations, into families. The beautiful foundation is they have the NICU infant development room at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, and they provide so much more. And we're going to get deeper into the moments of hope, things of that nature throughout the week as I unpack a little bit more about myself as well. We'll be back all week. 4-Star Sports Media YouTube and X pages, practice breakdown, risers, mailbags. We are going to be diving into the Arkansas Razorback players, Memphis, kids from the Memphis area, Mid-South flavor. And we'll get into the national talk. We talk Diego Pavia and Charles Demings as well. But hit the subscribe, follow, turn on notifications so you don't miss a single rep. For everyone in the chat today, I'm Wes Pruitt from the Craters Freighters Memphis Studio. Enjoy your Sunday. Be good to people. And we appreciate you watching and listening. But for all the people in the chat, if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy what you see, if you enjoy what you hear, like I said, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to comment. More importantly, let your friends know. Let them know. But tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., we'll be back. And we got Jonathan Sturdivant coming in to break it all down. Tomorrow night, got a very, very, very fun show lined up. Jason Patterson from Hogville come on, talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks as well as the entire Senior Bowl as a whole. Senior Bowl week is here, and we're going to have you covered up right here at 4-Star Sports Media all week. Once again, appreciate everyone watching, appreciate everyone listening. And like I said earlier, folks, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun week. Just got to sit tight, strap up, hang on. We're going to have a lot of fun. Be back tomorrow, 8 a.m., right here on the 4-Star Sports Media Network.